Hello there, and good tidings. A couple months ago, I gave a presentation, first one in a long time, a lecture on decentralization, what it is, what are past examples of it, recent, current, as well as what's new and emerging and what's possible, leveraging new technologies to underpin these more idealistic notions of how we might better organize ourselves, like through governance, through voting, economy, and so much more. This I presented at the third annual online Students of Spiritual Science Symposium that I've been co-organizing since I co-founded the nonprofit New Paradigm Navigators back in 2022. This was my first time presenting, and I'm excited to follow up going into each category, each aspect that I mentioned in regards to decentralization and what optimistic solutions might look like, pragmatic optimistic solutions. Are there better ways to do things than what seems to be not working for us? This I'm really curious about. I also mentioned the mycelial network and how nature might inspire us to implement design patterns that are more equitable, that are at least more fair, it's interesting. So stay tuned for that. Let me know what you think, and be well.
Grow yourself. This is all that there is left.
Okay, so now we're moving to Bruce Robinson. We'll have some time for Q&A after Bruce talk. So, hi Bruce. So his talk is titled "The New Earth is Decentralized." Bruce is a software engineer and creative explorer passionate about decentralization and regenerative systems. Through code and speech, he inspires connection and action toward a thriving future. He will present a weaving of decentralized philosophy, history, modern case studies, and emerging technologies to illuminate a path toward a more interconnected, autonomous, and nature-aligned world. Thank you, Bruce. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Natalia. Hello, and good tidings. Yeah, my name is Bruce Dean Starlove Robinson. I go by Starlove. And this is, let me share. This is my first presentation in years, titled "The New Earth is Decentralized." And two bits of caution. Animations for those who are photosensitive, and this presentation is content heavy, yet I have a time limit. And yet, despite that all, I will provide only a few examples of all there is to talk about. This may be something to rewatch and digest, and I will also follow this symposium with the launch of my content campaign, where I'll dive into all of it and more, including AI. Info at the end. So let's begin. As we heard from Rainbow, beneath our feet in forests and fields lies one of the planet's most intelligent and ancient infrastructures, the mycelial network. And it may just be one of our best models for redesigning how we live, relate, govern, and sustain. It listens, it shares what is needed. It is not governed by a central brain, and yet it knows exactly what to do, not by command, but by relationship. Beneath our feet is a form of wisdom older than empire, faster than legislation, and more adaptive than any economy we've yet designed. A commons-based system that metabolizes excess, redirects nutrients, and regenerates itself without hierarchical command. Though we are human, apparently distinct with powers of imagination and reshaping the elements into buildings and weapons, there are patterns in nature that we would do well to remember. One reason for my interest in decentralization is in seeking how we transition the ruling paradigm of domination and exploitation to one of cooperation and regeneration. Next slide. Decentralization is where nature, technology, and spirituality meet. This talk begins with the fungal because it is a natural and timeless example of what could be. Then I will weave human conjured philosophy, historical examples, modern case studies, and emerging technologies to illuminate a path toward a more interconnected, autonomous, and nature-aligned world. So Rainbow had opened a bit about the mycelial network. I'll keep this section short then, just to mention that the network is fundamentally cooperative, not competitive. It redistributes resources, carbon, nitrogen, water from abundance to need. Young saplings lacking sunlight receive nutrients from stronger trees. So there's a mutual flourishing through embedded reciprocity. It also has a recycling engine that breaks down dead matter and composts it back into life, and a whole lot more. The network is adaptive, it grows and prunes itself, it responds to damage with redirection, it doesn't scale linearly, it branches, tunnels, and remaps around obstacles. So these qualities, responsive, regenerative, relational, reveal a living logic, peer coordinated infrastructure that operates through symbiosis rather than domination. So hopefully with this natural example, you can begin to grasp how this might work for us. Now let's explore how humans have imagined and experimented with decentralization. Many of us know Buckminster Fuller, and especially this quote. It has been one of my guiding lights in recent years, is that you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So quite often in our conversation, we talk about how do we change what's current into what's new? And we definitely have to interface with what is current and not live in an ideal fantasy. But there is also an element of we can build decentralized systems in parallel to the old world that is decaying. And so Buckminster Fuller urged us not to fight existing systems. He had a concept of spaceship Earth that recognizes our planet as a closed system requiring careful resource management through distributed solutions rather than centralized control. He also concepted the geodesic domes, exemplifying this approach. Maximal structural integrity with minimum material achieved through efficient geometry that distributes loads evenly across the entire structure. This hopefully helps you begin to think structurally of how decentralization might work. I'll mention a few others. E.F. Schumacher, who gave us small is beautiful. He argued that production by the masses rather than mass production could create more meaningful work and sustainable communities. Schumacher's Buddhist economics, in quotes, emphasize sufficiency over efficiency, proposing that true prosperity comes from meeting human needs at the optimal scale. Murray Bookchin went further, proposing social ecology, where decentralization becomes both ecological imperative and political practice. Stuart Brand bridged counterculture and technology through the Whole Earth Catalog, which was published in 68 to 72. It embodied the principle of access to tools and decentralized information sharing. It implied an ideal of human progress that depended on decentralized, personal, and liberating technological development, and helped spawn the ethos that would later shape the internet itself. His vision was radical at the time. Give people direct access to the tools and knowledge they need, bypassing institutional gatekeepers entirely, although that is still considered radical. There's Gene Jacobs, who revolutionized urban thinking by observing that cities function through organized complexity rather than simple mechanical systems. Her advocacy for decentralized planning showed how local knowledge and organic development create more livable cities than top-down master plans. As urbanist columnist Nolan Gray notes, Jacobs knew that decentralized planning was the best way to make the most of local knowledge. Residents often have the knowledge needed to make wise decisions about urban form. So she championed neighborhoods as emergent ecosystems, where diversity and density create resilience through what she called the sidewalk ballet, spontaneous coordination without central choreography. I wish these videos were looping on and on. Oh, and there was also Christopher Alexander, who developed the concept of pattern languages. Read more about him. I must move on. No shade to him. And learning from failed blueprints. So history's utopian attempts offer crucial lessons because we may swim in these idealizations, and we're not the first ones either. Many in history have concepted it and even tested it. Two examples are as follows. New Harmony, where a gentleman named Robert Owen tried to create a rational cooperative society without private property or currency. Intellectuals, workers, and educators would ideally share labor and prosperity guided by Enlightenment ideals. But it failed as he attracted people with different motivations who never developed shared values or cooperation habits. Brilliant ideas don't automatically create cohesive communities. And what we can learn is that vision attracts, but culture sustains. You can't impose cooperation, it must be chosen and cultivated. Second example, Brook Farm. George and Sophia Ripley created an experimental commune in Massachusetts where intellectuals would share farming work and profits equally, giving everyone time to pursue literary and scientific interests that would benefit humanity. But it failed as these intellectuals were decidedly lacking in agricultural skills. Money troubles and internal squabbling eroded the community, which disbanded after a fire destroyed their main building. So what we can learn is that intellectual idealism without practical skills creates unsustainable foundations. You can't think your way out of basic survival needs. So some living examples of decentralization in practice. With regard to political decentralization, there's the Zapatista autonomous municipalities, where since 1994, 32 of these in Chiapas, España, have operated through rotating leadership councils and community assemblies. Their principle ensures leaders remain accountable to grassroots while coordinating regional infrastructure and defense through sophisticated federal structures. And Rojava's democratic confederalism in northern Syria. It's an autonomous administration that popped up after the Arab Spring, and it operates through nested councils with mandatory gender co-leadership, demonstrating decentralized governance even under war conditions, including the ISIS conflict and Turkish invasions. With regards to economic decentralization, there is the Mondragon Corporation. It's a federation of nearly 100 worker-owned cooperatives, employing more than 70,000 people. Democratic decision-making extends from shop floor to strategy, and economic downturns mean redistributing work hours rather than layoffs, showing how decentralized ownership creates different incentives than shareholder capitalism. There's also Kerala's Panchayati Raj, I hope I did not butcher that, in India, that it had achieved near universal literacy through earlier statewide initiatives, the state of Kerala that is, but this local governance has strengthened participatory planning across 1,200 local governments. With regards to cultural experimental decentralization, there is transition towns, which are nearly 1,000 officially registered communities worldwide, creating local resilience through permaculture, local currencies, and community energy projects, demonstrating how decentralized networks can address climate change through relocalized systems. And then there's also the Regional Burns Network, most famously pioneered by the Burning Man event, you might have heard. And there's multiple. So there are regional events globally that create temporary communities where alternative infrastructures emerge through collaborative organizing, forming a documented network of over 200 regional contacts across 34 countries now. So each example shows decentralization working to some degree through coordination that preserves local autonomy while enabling collective action. So this is the largest slide, and I don't know how I am on time. Oh, not going to get through it all, but emerging digital philosophies. There's Bitcoin that really kickstarted this in terms of how we can utilize technology to build systems that implement these philosophies in a way that is autonomous and trusted, because often there's a problem of how do we trust each other. But we can just rely on code, we can rely on math, we can rely on these systems that have a good effect of protecting us from the worst tendencies of ourselves. I would love to describe this all in detail of how Bitcoin came about, how it was in response to the global financial crisis, and how it has allowed for the emergence of DAOs, which are decentralized autonomous organizations. It's like a company where the rules are written in the code instead of corporate bylaws, and decisions are made by community voting rather than top-down management. I provided examples of DAOs. I will definitely follow up this conference with a video where I'll go into the detail. But you can picture a climate action DAO where global contributors fund reforestation projects, vote on which initiatives to support, and automatically distribute carbon credits, coordinating planetary restoration without waiting for governments. And the examples go on. There's also DIDs, the decentralized identifiers, or yes. They let you own your digital identity instead of platforms controlling it. So rather than Facebook, Google, or governments holding your credentials, you control a cryptographic identity that works across all platforms. I'll just mention, there's more I want to say on that, but I want to mention that there is a centralized effort to create digital identities, and then there are decentralized identity protocols that are being developed for and by the people, with the best interests of humanity at large. And I would love to have a whole presentation just to talk about that. Then there's two books that I was really inspired by that my presentation was initially going to be about. They're titled Green Pilled and Mycophi. Mycophi dives into specifically the mycelial network and how there are 6 key takeaways that we can implement as design patterns for all that we do with decentralized technology henceforth and how we organize collectively. And then Green Pilled is talking about the ugly underbelly of crypto that you might have heard of, especially in regards to NFTs and scams and these sorts of things. And Green Pilled illuminates that technology is neutral. You can use it for good, you can use it for bad. And there's a lot of good being developed on blockchain technology that you just don't get to hear about because it's not, as sexy or viral on the news. And that's, again, a whole nother presentation that I originally planned to talk about. And then there's a network state, which is more about how we organize as people utilizing these technologies. That there are digital communities that eventually acquire physical territory, and they represent governance structures that transcend traditional nation-state boundaries. So many are saying the idea of modern nation states with physical boundaries are going to shift, and there will certainly be an emergence of decentralized states. Now, this is a big open topic, and we're all exploring what that might even look like. And so there are questions for the journey ahead in regards to decentralization, because it's vast, it's a huge topic in regards to governance, economy, infrastructure, education, culture, health, identity, transition. Some speakers earlier today spoke about education and some of these other topics. It's a lot. And it's good to keep in mind, I'm not presenting that decentralization is a silver bullet. It isn't. And so keep those in mind as we consider decentralizing the planetary powers. Again, a whole nother section I would love to talk about, but just how would it work, not just in communes or test labs, but at the planetary scale? What does it look like for the EU, the United States, China, India, the Muslim world, etc.? I'll just say, honestly, from my point of view, it doesn't begin with just implementing decentralized governance. It would begin with healing, generational trauma, colonization's residues, millennia of empire logic encoded in our nervous systems. So decentralization will only work when the inner architecture is tended to. That means truth-telling and ritualized repair between peoples, distributed education models that enable local autonomy, polycentric governance with overlapping nested circles and not binary borders, and tech that serves dignity. So DIDs, decentralized identities, for example, refugee self-determination, blockchain-based commons for food, water, and data. And I provide examples about how that might look like for the EU and the US. Well, I'll move on. So, a vision forward, a sacred mesh network. So hopefully I've illuminated a little bit about decentralization, enough for all of us to imagine the new Earth we can build, if we're bold enough and if we're humble enough to listen. Picture decentralized societies not only surviving but thriving, knit together by shared values, ritual, and mutual aid. Not a return to the past, but an evolution forward. I believe we can weave decentralization into most human systems, not to control the world, nor to impose some imagined ideal of anarchy or socialism, but to foster a future where humanity and nature can flourish in harmony, protected from our worst tendencies by deeply aligned intrinsic incentives. It's not just structure, it's soul. It's a way of being in right relation. This presentation is a prelude, a philosophical and systems overview. From here, I invite you to follow along as I go deeper. I hope you enjoyed my dense yet incomplete presentation. Please visit my website and join the newsletter to stay updated as I release more detailed content and co-create this vision together. Thank you.
Wow, thank you, Bruce. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. Wonderful work. Okay, so now we have actually 15 minutes for the Q&A. Okay, Diane.
Bruce, I'm interested because politics, how to cover the world politically, how to unite the world. As I said earlier, can't remember, I say it all the time, but there's a movement going on where planet Earth is being united. Something is happening on planet Earth at this moment. But therefore, the way we communicate, a lot of it would be called politics. And therefore, I'm interested, do you have any communication with, for example, transition towns?
Yeah, so of the transition town movement, no, but I have direct contact with, and I have participated in several of these other sort of network states, these pop-up villages, as they're called. It's funny, I didn't even put them in my presentation, but I visited them. There's a movement called, or an organization, what do you call this? It's like a new thing where it just emerges, called Edge City, and they do pop-up villages around the world. It's sort of like on the edge, or an edge in the network. Um, there's that. There's Vitalia City in Honduras. So Honduras, there's an island just off the Honduras mainland where a big portion of land, well, it's considered a free zone, basically, free legal zone. And within that, these group of people came together and started creating their own permanent city. I have not been there yet, but I've been invited and would love to go. There are also new cities being popped up in the US. There's one in Arizona called Cul-de-sac. There's one outside of San Francisco called Esmeralda. There's one outside of Austin that's being developed. And there's several more being developed. And they're just happening quiet. They're being built with crypto and blockchain technology fundamentally involved. So governance based on blockchain and decentralized systems, which help implement a lot of the political philosophy that has been developed over the last 70 years that just hasn't seen integration, because through human history, it takes violent regime change in order to test new ideas. And hopefully we don't need that anymore, although it's very tricky with the EU and the US, but there are these incubators that are attempting to implement these new systems. And there's Frontier inside San Francisco. They bought a giant tower and they own the whole tower and they're building out a community within that. There's so much going on, honestly. And I can't wait to cover more of it after this.
And it's all being united and it's happening naturally. Like you say, when I was growing up, we saw violent revolution. Revolution was violent. And then we realized actually it didn't change anything for the people in the fields. Life remained the same for ordinary people on the streets. So revolution, I learned, is a process of gradual change. And therefore gradually, when the pandemic came, that was when the whole of everything on earth came to a halt and we could have revised our behavior. We didn't. So because nothing stays the same, it got worse rather than better. However, this quiet movement, or this amazing, huge movement is going on that's similar to mycelium. And hopefully the earth's we're changing. If we can be intelligent enough to go with the change and work at assemblies and how to communicate with, how to cooperate, not conflict, what you said is cooperation, not conflict, not combat. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was brilliant.
And yes, and it's also, just real quick, it's not about there are other technologies that are great to help voting integrity and governance and all these things, but we have the internet. And the internet, while it's getting centralized behind the scenes, it is fundamentally still decentralized. And it's a matter of how do we use it better, because it exists. And so that's where I am developing a whole new social media platform to embed these sort of new Earth ideals that we have. But I digress. Sign up for my newsletter for more info on that.
Thank you. Now, Richard?
Yes, Bruce, that was not only excellent, but very inspiring. And I know, as you pointed out on one of your slides, small community, the kibbutzes, for example, in Israel, they only work when they're very small. That in an attempt to go beyond a certain size and everything falls apart. And of course, nobody's ever tried what Plato suggested in the Republic. Never. It's been tried.
The kibbutzes were actually kind of the first attempt to implement Plato's philosophy, but there are a number of challenges why it hasn't scaled. A lot of that's the religiosity component and just the tension in the area and such. Oh, there's so much to talk about. Good point. Thanks for bringing that up.